Stand back, honey. I will talk to the aliens. I have the penis.
I have less of a problem starting with the drawing than I have now with talking. So I cannot really tell how to start. Should I do greetings? Hello everybody, but there's no everybody. There was one view in my last video, so it's just my own little therapy session. Compare it to Carl Sagan's probe sent into space in the 70s or late 60s called Voyager. It's just floating in space. Right now it just about left the solar system, I think. And the idea was to just send some sort of evidence of our existence out into space, thinking that maybe at some point, since the deterioration in space is so minimal that this object will exist for maybe billions of years, that maybe in the future civilizations will find it out in space somewhere in the vicinity of a nearest star. Maybe should there be life out there, they will find it and they will look at the little plaque that we made. There was an engraved image of a couple of humans, male and a female. And the creators of this design thought about creating the most representative average image of humans. So obviously it ended up being two humans, male and female, of average young age, maybe in their 20s, reproductive age, I would say. They're both naked, so there's an unsolicited nude sent out to outer space. And then the male is on the left side, kind of the way we read. It would read as the male is first, right? The male is taller, obviously, because on average men are taller. But it just sends the message of like the men are the ones who do the talking. The man has this active pose of raising his hand, while the woman is kind of in the background, kind of meekly waiting for things to unfold, while the man is the driving force of all this nonsense. And he's like, I almost see the like little comic strip speech bubbles extending from them. The male says,
Stand back, honey. I will talk to the aliens. I have the penis.
and that's the message we send to the aliens. And it was still like, that was the progressive thing. That was one of the most progressive things that happened in the 70s. But yeah, that's how we want to be perceived. And creating any sort of stereotypes out of the average, is risky. Because it will set the potential aliens' expectations to, so this is what those beings are, and then they will assume that all of us are just this. Or will they think that those two entities are one somehow? Because maybe the aliens that will find the plaque will be the kind of species that share a consciousness, even though they have multiple bodies. And who knows what aliens could be? In one of his books, Stanisław Lem created an alien that's just a blob of water-like substance that envelopes the entire planet, that has like will and controls things, and also some kind of psychic abilities to make people see things. So we imagining everything based on our own measure of who we are. We anthropomorphize everything, other animals and aliens. And very few movies actually play with this idea of us not even having a faint idea what aliens could be. Who's to say that they even are carbon-based? So yeah, that's the first thought of the day. But that the Voyager probes are, I think that I kind of almost forgot why I brought it up. It's this. I'm making these little videos with the content, basically imprinted content of my mind onto them. Should there be a like-minded brain to discover them and appreciate them. So that's why it's sort of, I'm leaving a record of my own existence. But I'm also kind of excited about like the fact that someone might find it and appreciate it and maybe relate to it in some way. This session is truly a therapy session, because I have been feeling a little crappy lately, and I don't know if it's just stress related or something else, maybe, or is it like some kind of digestive issue, or because anxiety can really masquerade as anything. If you're an anxious person, it's so suggestive that you might start to believe that you have all sorts of diseases, even though it's just anxiety. So right now it kind of masquerades as some sort of digestive imbalance, maybe gut microbiome problem, or it just affects my sleep. And then when I sleep less, I'm feeling even more crappy. It's a kind of vicious cycle you can be caught in very easily. It's very hard to get out of, because it takes a long time of like resting, gradual resting, and like trying to get yourself out of that pattern little by little. It's like you try to take a little bit more rest, one bit at a time, while your symptoms improve and you feel less stressed, and that doesn't affect your stomach as much. But so it takes a while. But then all my blood work and all tests indicate that I'm a specimen of health, and yet I keep pestering my doctor, telling him that something is wrong with me, and like the doctor is rolling his eyes and like, no, you're fine. I'm like, I don't feel fine. It's sort of like, I know that I feel wonky and off, but when someone asks me what are exactly your symptoms, then the description is so vague. I can't even think of any solid description of what I'm experiencing. It's just like, vague discomfort and general discomfort in the stomach and chest area. Is it pain? Is there pain? No, there's no pain. It's just this blah feeling. Like, I can't even describe it, but it seems so real, even though it's not. I mean, it is real in some sense, but mostly on the level of the mind. And the mind is the most powerful generator of some symptoms, and the way placebo works is very powerful. You might actually take a tic-tac. The doctor might give you a tic-tac telling you that this medicine will help your whatever you're experiencing, fatigue. I literally need a padded room for that noise, and like I need maybe a recording studio. So like, what starts out as just a casual activity, just drawing, ends up being this whole production. Like, it started out with like framing my area of drawing more thoroughly, and then getting more lighting, and then maybe getting white pencil and white glove. And now the noise is bothering me, so now I'm seeking a recording booth with padding. And it's all for nothing. I mean, for one view, which is my view. But it's still like, I have this drive to improve things, even though it's even though it's for its own sake. And that's the kind of motivation that I talked about earlier, which is like being motivated by just a sheer obsession with improvement and trying to improve things for the sake of improvement, rather than to impress your parents or colleagues or peers. Just improve things because they need improving, without too much overthinking. But yeah, I think I did try these office sound booths. There are these little compartments that you can place on the floor in your office, and they're like kind of like glass booths with soundproof glass and padding. And I entered one, and I must say that disappointingly, they don't really block that much noise. I could still hear some ambient noises. I could still hear conversations. So like it probably blocks your own noise, your own conversation, if you don't want people to hear what you're saying on the call. But I think it doesn't really do a good job blocking the outside noise. So I feel like creating some kind of sound booth that doesn't allow noises from outside penetrate the walls would be the best thing. I wouldn't have to worry about pausing and swearing at the trains. But like, my mind decided that the trains are a major disruption in this case. But what if I incorporated the sounds in this video? Because I'm not the only important element of this experience. Maybe a sound of a passing train wouldn't be so bothersome. I would just have to stop talking for a second, let the train pass, and I don't even have to edit it out. Because like, I don't have to consider it as noise. Like, we kind of decide that this is a weed and this is the plant. This is good plant, this is a weed, and the weeds have to go out. Like, the weeds have as much right to exist as the other plants. The same goes for different random noises. I'm making noise with my mouth. So that kind of adjustment to make, that could help. Do the trains actually bother me? Do they disrupt the flow of this project? Is it a project? What is it? So this drawing is a little smaller and it's probably going to take less time, which is good because it's morning and I don't really have that much time, and I'm also feeling crappy. I haven't slept well. So there might be some, you might actually sense some of the disturbance and annoyance in my voice. I'm just sort of feeling a little off and I don't know, lost for words. Well, here comes another train, and this time I'm going to just let it, because it's part of the reality we live in. Embrace it. Here comes the train again. I can. Every time I'm trying to sing a song, I realize that I don't know the lyrics. It's very annoying. The sort of things that we do to calm down. Some of it is watching satisfying content, and I found a channel that's very satisfying to watch. It's called I'm going to butcher his name, Baumgartner's Restorations. It's a very popular channel, a lot of following. It's basically a now middle-aged person who looks pretty youthful still, that professionally restoring artworks, particularly paintings. And I found it through another channel that I've been binging on, which is Answers with Joe. If you like wacky facts and scientific factoids and weird mysteries solved or unsolved, watch Answers with Joe. Very well produced channel, because the creator of the channel has professional background in TV production. And this kind of cool thing about YouTube is that any Joe, including this Joe, having a good background in production, can create a TV grade program just on a social media platform with some basic equipment, which is now kind of easier because things became a little lighter, and LEDs made lighting much easier now, and the cameras are better. It's a very well produced sort of a popular science program. So this Answers with Joe channel led me to that art restoration channel, and I've been binging on that, and it's quite a treat to watch a painting come back to life from the state of being yellowed and patined by grime and time to being as fresh as it looked right after it was painted. And it turns out that we create this aura around antiquity, which is like this kind of toned down, yellowed vibe, which we think is the sort of characteristic of things of the past, but it's just a time pattern. And when you restore an artwork, it turns out that it was as fresh as any other thing from the present. Like even like you flip through some fashion catalogs and the colors are as bright as they become after renovating a painting. So very bright blues and reds, and suddenly that antiquity, that little aura of elegance that's associated with this yellow residue on the varnish is gone, and suddenly the painting looks like a cheesy catalog, page from a cheesy catalog. And the same goes for the sculptures from ancient Greece and maybe Rome, that we now know of as white, and white, kind of white marble, signifying this touch of elegance and class, and that's how we perceive the classical art. But back then, based on findings and scans, it turns out that these sculptures have some paint residue. There's pigment on them, and they were painted in the most garish and unlikely colors. Like, some of the faces were red, and like, because the limited palette of the amount of pigments that they could get was kind of not enough to color up those statues in a realistic way. So they didn't really color them up in a realistic way, but kind of almost like psychedelic. And it would be kind of interesting to go back in time and see the authentic Greek sculptures all dolled up with paint like that. And we'll totally flip our understanding of classical art on its head and our assumptions. And that's kind of almost, it's kind of like a very recent sort of mentality, because in the old times, people didn't have that much of a means to restore old art. And now we have a little bit more care in looking at finding old art and restoring it, and looking at old art covered by this patina of time. We think of it as elegant. If the painting is slightly yellowed, or maybe very yellowed, or almost brown, to the point of missing all the details, and we think of it as, oh wow, that's so mysterious. But there used to be nothing mysterious about this painting on the very day it was finished and varnished. It was shiny and colorful, because people always enjoy colors. I mean, aside from few instances where, like in Victorian era, where people were straying from colors and staying away from them. Even though Victorians did crave colors, they did want their wallpaper to be bright green, which, didn't even stop them. The arsenic in the pigment that was used to create the dye that was used to create these wallpapers didn't stop them from enjoying that deep green color. So there was like green and purple and deep red, and there was a lot of black, of course, because the Queen Victoria was in mourning her whole life, and that became a fashion. And the color of the Victorian dress, male and female, was black, and some people believe that it was also because the soot from the smokestacks that was back then everywhere would look more conspicuous on the fabric that's black. So you could wear white on Sunday and then you would have to wash it because of the soot, the carbon particles in the air. But yeah, so things were a little bit more cheesy than we think they were. Even music. We think of opera as this like elegant art form. Back then, opera was just like soap opera that we watch on TV. It was just a cheap drama. Granted, the craft involved in creating music in the past was much more advanced. Also making instruments, it's much more complex, much more ornamental, I would say. And to some extent, ornaments are a measure of your craftsmanship. But ornaments is not really all there is, and that's why I'm a little bit ambivalent about classical music, because very rarely I get kind of swept up by a classical piece that's not really disguised in this whole plethora of ornaments. Little, there's a lot of these ornamental elements in classical music that actually distract me from experiencing it for what it is. And sometimes I come across very simple classical piece that is not really overwhelmed with these ornaments. Like Mozart, I think Mozart did have a lot of ornaments, but Mozart's ornaments made sense somehow, especially in Requiem. When I listen to his Requiem, his final piece, I just hear the music, I don't hear the ornaments. There are a lot of really clever pieces in there that are kind of complex but not ornamental, if you know what I mean. Like they're stripped down just enough to enjoy the music and the intention of the artist without these like show-off ornaments, kind of like adding a frill to a piece for no good reason, just to impress the emperor that was written for. So it's very hard balance to strike if you're an artist, to abandon the need to impress and just go to the core of of your experience and what you want to say. And sometimes it just seems like it's too simplistic and too not difficult enough in terms of skill and craft to just expose your raw side. And it just sometimes seems like it's not enough. But then even artist actually manages to be raw, like Van Gogh. There was still a lot of complexity in Vincent's paintings, but it was also the amount of complexity was dictated by his emotion rather than just the need to insert ornaments to impress someone. So it was like every single brushstroke in his art was there for a good reason, and it was just cared for. Like every single brushstroke had this love behind it. Like he really took good care of every single element of his paintings. And like there's life behind every brushstroke. The same goes for Mozart's music. Every note has a good reason to exist. So like, as opposed to the other contemporary music. And of course, Mozart was a sometimes vain asshole. He really did want to impress, show off. He was vain and apparently narcissistic, craved attention. But like looking at his final piece, it seems like that urge to impress was gone, because now it became all about just a raw expression. And in fact, I don't even like to listen to other Mozart pieces. When I listen to Mozart, I always put on Requiem. This train sound was actually satisfying. It had a rhythm to it. It was almost like a soundtrack that I could draw to. And sometimes I do like to draw to a soundtrack. Kind of trancey, like repetitive drum sometimes puts you in this flow state, the zone. Piece by piece. So watching this restoration YouTube channel kind of reminded me about patience and how it's actually worth exercising patience. The more you take care of something, like your work, the more it pays off in the long run. And like, paying attention to the quality of every single mark that I leave here. I always forget about that, and I start to feel a little bit automatic in what I'm doing. And the author of this channel always says that he doesn't force the work. If he doesn't feel it, he stops and he moves on to doing something else, something less involved maybe, or a kind of type of work that has a different nature than what he was just doing, and it helps to stop. So the practice of stopping is actually a term in Buddhist teaching. If you listen to Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese Buddhist monk, he talked about the practice of stopping, of how our minds are conditioned to always be on the run and never being able to be liberated enough to say, okay, I'm stopping now. Because there's the urge. Look how much blank space there is to paint, and there's, the video is rolling, and I don't want to waste the precious memory on my phone camera. So it kind of urges me to run, or even when I'm leaving my marks on the paper, it urges me to do it faster, so that the faster I finish, the sooner I be able to move on to the next thing. And then, even though I don't know what the next thing is, there's some urge to be always on the run. So the practice of stopping is, I think it also has a term, I forgot. I can look it up. It's a very important practice. Also, it's very hard to pull off. It's a meditative practice of being able to stop your run. Even when you are a runner, you might actually relate to that. When you are on your long run, the 8th mile of your relaxing run feels very pleasant, and you don't feel like stopping at all. You feel you wish you could do this forever, because it feels so good. You're in a flow state. And then if you are somehow able to stop suddenly, it feels very unnatural and almost anxiety inducing to disrupt that flow of your run. So according to this practice of stopping, it shouldn't be the case. When you stop, you stop. It's compared to coming home. I'm home now. I'm safe. I don't have to run anymore. But it's apparently the hardest thing to do in our modern era of the rat race, and always racing, always rushing, and always anticipating, people making plans for year 2028. It's like, well, what's going to happen? There always has to be some kind of next thing on the horizon. What's our budget plan for 2028? It's 2026 now, and had I done my plans back in 2024, then I wouldn't be in trouble now, right? So now it's 2026, and I haven't planned out anything 2 years ago, and now I'm in trouble. Or am I? So if I was to stop now, it should feel okay if I practiced my meditation enough. It should feel just right stopping here, maybe even in mid-sentence, because very rarely something actually reaches completion in real life too. Most wildlife, most animal lives are interrupted. Very rarely an animal dies of old age, because in the wild you're always being chased by something. Or if you are a chasee, let's say you're a rabbit, you get a little older and you get a little slower, and then something gets you. But if you are the fox, it still applies to you, because when you get older, you won't be able to catch anything that's faster than you, and then you will starve. Or maybe something else will catch you, like some kind of predatory bird. So there's the interruption is the vital, integral part of life. So in fact, completion is very rare in nature. Everything is in constant flux, and everything is in a constant development and change. And part of that change is also stopping while in the development. So we always have this fear that the end will come before I'm able to finish all my things. And the truth of it is that there's really no way you will be able to be complete and finish everything you've worked on before it's time to go, especially if it's sudden. So you have to kind of really come to terms with the fact that everything you do might not reach a completion, which is why I tend to focus on the process these days more than the final result. To be okay with just this, whether or not it's completed or not. And just sort of chisel it out, one bit at a time. And just sort of focus on it, keep your nose close to it, hopefully without obscuring the camera with my head. And just sort of focusing on one area at the time, and then zooming out occasionally, or maybe even not zooming out until the very end. It would be like pulling the bark off of a branch that was infested by a boring wood beetle, eating away all the pulp under the bark and not knowing really what kind of pattern it creates. So that kind of activity can be important, because then you don't really focus on the problem with stopping and unfinishing things, because this is already a finished, this one mark that I'm just leaving on the paper is already a finished entity, and I don't have to worry about where it's going. I will work towards this pattern here in the middle being a little bit brighter and more defined. Vague decision. I don't know what prompts my decisions. It's sort of, kind of deciding things as I go. Maybe some of the drawings could have kind of a vast, bright spots. There's a little accidental line that I made with the pencil when I was trying to work on focus. Cover it. But so kind of wavy patterns are appearing here. The problem with the very light sections is that the marks of the pencil show a lot more, and I want to soften them. I kind of want to almost create an appearance that it's not really lines, but just values and fuzzy gradients, which is kind of hard to pull off when it comes to a semi-soft pencil on a granular paper surface. Oh, there was a shadow. but slowly. Kind of a nice objective to have. Barely touching the paper. Not even like letting the weight of the pencil do its job, because even for that, even the pencil seems too heavy. So I'm kind of leaving the mark while slightly lifting the pencil. So even decreasing the weight of the tool to some degree, so that it's not too heavy. And that way we are reaching the halfway point here, I think. And I feel like I have less to talk about right now, sort of focusing on this gradient. Pretty tricky. It's like barely touching the paper and like being frustrated that the pencil doesn't leave any mark, but then it turns out it does. And it turns out maybe it's even too strong. And throughout the drawing process, there are things that appear that I don't really see until later, and when I play the time lapse back, it turns out that at certain stages my drawing had a potential of becoming maybe a monster or portrait. Like people see faces in there. Like someone took a screenshot of one stage of my drawing that looked like the like a profile view of a face of an old man, kind of like that rock in New Hampshire that recently collapsed. The old man, and it was kind of a historic moment when you have a rock that's been in existence for millions of years of the geological life of the planet, and in your generation, in your lifetime, that rock collapsed. It's a very substantial event, because that rock has been like tourist attraction. There are hotels around there and restaurants that are inspired by this shape of that rock face, and then it just collapses. And suddenly, like, it's not so much of a tourist attraction. People just are less inclined to come to a place that used to be the old man in the mountain. Now it's just a former old man in the mountain. And the businesses are struggling suddenly. And it's like, how could you even predict that when you opened a motel based on that idea of old man in the mountain, you had no idea that it would collapse within your lifetime, and then yet it collapses, and then suddenly your life idea, your whole life of livelihood is being threatened by a rare geological event. I guess we don't have control over most things. So this is kind of a nice placeholder for talk therapy for me, even though I'm talking to myself mostly. It does not only calm me down, but also it kind of helps me resurface some of the issues that I'm struggling with. And the problem with, therapy does help, and it's the resource that can actually save lives. But in the context of like just needing it for just general maintenance, it's a replacement for genuine human contact. Many people are struggling now with loneliness, and then in order to have this remedied, all the health and stress related issues that come from loneliness can be remedied by paying a bit of money to have a professional talk to you that is kind of stand-in for a friend you would have, to kind of, talk to, because people used to talk to each other about all these issues, and they could have a friend willing to just listen. And now it's all turned into profit. And sort of everything, I'm just really fatigued with this reality of everything is being done in the context of monetary exchange. Even a placeholder for a friend placeholder, which is a therapist, is expecting a fee for something that could have been done without money involved. Just people being a little bit more outgoing and open and willing to listen. And it's now either this, just talking to yourself, or to the camera. People are also starting to use ChatGPT for therapy, which is, scary, but if it helps, then great. And then paid professionals are basically a replacement. So like on one hand, we are doing everything we can to eliminate the culture of friendship. We're sort of running away from human contact, from human interaction, and that's the way the system is set up. And that is a great opportunity for making money, because suddenly, people need a friend to vent to, and since nobody is willing to do that, there are people who make a lot of money on just that little deficiency of human contact. And there's a lot more demand for that now, because everybody is in their own bubble, scrolling through social media. And I always feel resentful when I'm at this point where I feel like I need to talk to a therapist, because in some way I feel like I'm being cheated, like it's a scam. Like I look at all these neat websites that the psychological clinics are putting together, like there's usually a flower or Zen garden on the website, and like some kind of slogan, change your life, or find balance. And there are things that can be done. I wish there were more things that can be done without having to pay for them. Everybody's selling something. You can pay a stranger to be your friend for a few months, because that's the only thing you need. You don't really need, even though the psychologists are professionals, a lot of them actually don't even respond to the venting. When someone sits on this therapist chair, the therapist just nod and write things down in their notebook. And then they suggest something sometimes, but most of the time it's like, you're paying me to listen to you, and it helps you, then, sometimes it's actually easier to have a listener than have someone giving you unsolicited advice. And the reason this helps for me is that when you voice your thoughts, they become more solid. It's almost like you can almost touch them. And then sometimes when you just remain in the realm of thoughts, the thoughts can become convoluted, and you can kind of untangle them through talking, because talking helps you think slower and reconsider things. So like you can kind of almost contradict your own misconceptions that your brain creates through going through the list of why it makes sense, and like even like trying to voice that thought. I feel like I'm rushing because I feel a little bit more tired than usual because of the poor sleep and like having some strange digestive glitches. That could just be anxiety, but who knows. The problem with being generally healthy and fit is a paradox, because then if you're fit and your test results are great, then it kind of causes your medical team or doctor that you work with kind of nod off, and you've determined that you are a specimen of health. You're so healthy, you don't need any care. And even when you complain about some symptoms to the doctor might just kind of ignore you for a long time because, this guy is fit, nothing to worry about, low cardiac risk, good blood tests. And then when something actually does happen, because even healthy people can fall ill, there's a less likelihood that it can be detected sooner, because you have the reputation of being healthy, and the doctor develops a blind spot. And then because before you know it, you have like some kind of rare disease or some cancer that was undetected for a long time. So like there's this joke that the hypochondriac husband created a gravestone for himself, and he was so hypochondriac, always complaining about some issues while being healthy, and people were annoyed with it, and then his gravestone would say, "I told you I was sick." So that's kind of what I imagine my gravestone would be. Nobody believes me that I'm sick. I'm fit, I'm strong, nothing to worry about. It's like doctor becomes blind to me, and like, it's great, you know. Apple a day keeps the doctor away. And another saying, whatever you do, make sure that you see your doctor only on the golf course. Which is like weird, like I don't know how and why I would play golf with my doctor. Maybe, you know, if you are in the same club, in the same town. But like, I don't really play golf, and I don't subscribe to the golf club culture, which is a culture in itself. It sort of has a baggage. Like the game itself, the game of golf, is a neat game. It's developed by Scottish, I think it was Scottish shepherds that developed golf, and it was just a game involving balls and holes. That didn't sound too kosher. Balls and holes, and walking and being outdoors and precision. But then it got turned into, just like yoga, it got turned into this thing, this kind of cultural burden where golf became this symbol of wealth, the symbol of the thing that you do to close deals or to network. And like, golf is so important now that if you don't golf, you're not invited to golf, you miss out on very important networking and deals, and like you really are missing out in the world of business. And then there's very few people that you actually see on the golf courses that are just regular people enjoying the game. Everything is about schmoozing and like making deals and gossiping, and it just became this whole thing. The kind of, it became associated with luxury too, and because, you know, let's face it, luxury is being able to put a vast swaths of land to waste, basically, and mow it. The sad irony of golf is that a lot of golf courses are created on former sites of dumps. So city dump gets overfilled and gets covered by soil, and then the grass is planted and golf course is created on a dump, which is a great strategy. But I don't really like the fact that a lot of golf courses are just created on a wildlife area, because, you know, a lot of people who play golf believe that golf courses are natural. There's really nothing natural about golf courses, because when you cut trees and you change the entire way the soil gets drained, and you create this artificial landscape, it really doesn't help the ecosystem. So yeah, so like, it was perfect for Scottish landscape, where basically the landscape itself already looks like a golf course. There's really not much you can add to it. But like in areas where, you know, in Florida, for example, golf courses are created on these wild swamps full of life, and, you know, whole ecosystems are destroyed. The swamps are being dried out, and they dump some soil and create an artificial, plasticky looking field of nothing. Rich people can drive their golf carts on and close deals. I made a cartoon once where there was some kind of bunch of people in the office, and one man holds a soccer ball, while the other group has their golf clubs ready, and the guy with the soccer ball says, "Oh no! Actually, we close our deals over soccer here." Of a cool alternate glimpse on what would happen if golf wasn't the discipline associated with business deals and opulence and luxury. Soccer is the kind of a game of poor people, basically. It's the kids in poor neighborhoods in Brazil play soccer with they make a ball out of rugs and just kick it around. But it's too physically taxing to be able to focus on gossip and business and networking. Soccer is very involved physically. Golf is just precision shots and walk. If it's close enough, then if it's far, then you hop onto your little golf cart and then you can discuss the fiscal plan for the next year, or hiring who's a good candidate for your CEO position. Oh, nice shot. You can be my new assistant now, because your precision in golf tells me that you have what it takes to occupy this responsible position. Did you know that women in business are not invited to golf courses, and they kind of have to invite themselves? And I know from some sources that there was a family where there was a person who had just daughters and never invited a single one of them to the golf course, but he did invite his nephews, for example, or grandchildren that were male. So some of the daughters just learned golf by themselves and just kind of started going by themselves, and then it was imperative for them to be part of that world, not to miss out on important information and networking. But they had to kind of force themselves in. Golf, yoga, disciplines that are kind of invented to be simple, became these symbols of affluence, luxury, only by adding elements to it. Like in case of golf, it's simply adding the need for large swaths of land in the areas that actually don't have that kind of landscape is the luxury in itself. And in yoga, even though yoga is the simplest possible discipline you can think of, all you need is your body and a ground. The industry created this need for buying these very expensive yoga pants and yoga mats, yoga supplements, I don't know what else, yoga incense and blocks, yoga towels, scented candles, yoga mat cleaners, I don't know what else. That adds up and it creates a huge industry out of a discipline that was meant to be about minimalism and nothing, about just being you, your own self, your own body on a bare ground. So even that was turned into a business. Here come the blobs. It's really unlike the other drawings I did. Just kidding. It's exactly like the other drawings. Actually, it doesn't take less time to draw this smaller one. It did help me focus a little and kind of remedy that stress that I felt that kept me awake. I should do it more often, maybe even just draw without the camera. I could try drawing and then doing voiceover while watching. Because maybe that way the drawing can become more involved. And then I can just relax and just talk out of my butt while watching. It would be a little different. How bright should this be? And here's the image of the universe again. It's kind of, I always laugh. When I look at the amazing new pictures of the universe scientists just took, they look just like a stain on the wall. Like, out of context, you would look at this blobby image and you would say it's just a, some kind of schmutz, some kind of stain on the pavement, on a random pattern. But then it turns out that it's an area of the sky seen through a powerful telescope, and some new cluster of galaxies was glimpsed at. But then, okay, but all I see is blobs. It doesn't really help me. I know it's with context of the universe, it's wow, amazing. The same goes for the pictures of surfaces of planets like Mars. Well, it just looks like a trail in Utah, the Arches National Park. Mundane. The only cool thing about it is that it's millions of miles away. But elements are the same everywhere. There are no new elements out there in the universe. They're all the same always. Iron is iron wherever you go. Helium and hydrogen, it's everywhere. However vast the universe is, there are no other new elements, as far as we know, out there beside of what we discovered. And that is now listed in the Mendeleev period of elements. The gravity is the same. Because the rules of gravity, of course, gravity on a smaller planet would be lower. On a bigger planet would be higher. So I think the best boot camp would be to go to a planet that has a lot more gravitational pull and spend a few months on a planet that just makes it harder to even stand up. And then it would be like a full body workout plan. So like that could be a future of fitness, the future of fitness, going through a wormhole to a planet that has gravity 3 times the gravity of Earth. And you just by hanging out on this planet, you become buff and strong. You come back to Earth and you're like Superman, superhero. I mean, Superman was an alien that probably, I think he grew up on a high gravity planet. That's why he was so strong. I don't know what explains the ability to fly. The theory is that Superman didn't really fly, he was leaping. So he was so strong that he could leap and land safely. So he could leap over Empire State Building and land safely on the other side or even further. It's kind of a sound theory. Because flying is a woo, it's supernatural. And I think Superman is a little bit more hard sci-fi, I would say, rather than like, Superman is flying because of some kind of woo force, supernatural magic. If it's a leap, if it's a jump, then it's much more realistic. And if you practice parkour, you know that you can execute pretty long jumps and land with precision. So like people can jump 12 feet, 14 feet gaps, depending on the momentum that they also gain from a run-up, and from the jump from standing can be also impressive when you are a good jumper. It's all about not just power, but also technique. The technique of jumping is very interesting. You swing your arms, you punch your feet away from the surface you're standing on at an angle. It's kind of like you have this ballistic curve where you basically let yourself fall forward. At a certain point, when you reach a good angle, like 45-degree angle, standing on that ledge, then you power away from that surface while swinging your arms. So basically your torso and your head travels much shorter way than your feet, because it's kind of like a little pendulum movement. And you can land on another target that seems to be quite far away, even though the jump itself was not that strenuous. So a lot of the parkour elements that I've learned that seemed magical and impossible turned out to be very straightforward and doable. And just about technique. Just there's a technique to everything. It's all in the wrist, as they say. And there are safe techniques that can make the impossible move look magical. Impossible looking move look magical. But it's just application of the right and safe technique that helps you achieve that. And the funny thing is when I hear scientists say things like, modern humans lost all their agility and speed and strength of all the primates that can leap from branch to branch. And then I look at the videos on Instagram of some accomplished parkour athletes that actually do leap from branch to branch like orangutan. And then like these scientists need to get out more. I think they're making claims that are false based on their own experience of being a scientist sitting in their lab all day and like just Just look around. Actually, there are athletes that can still maintain this agility of the primates, other primates. We still have that. We still have the grip in our hand, precision, springiness in our jump. We just have to practice it, and it's not that difficult. I mean, if you're a young teenager, when there is still time to develop it and you don't have any issues with health, mobility issues, then you can still practice the discipline at the level that your body allows you, which is a great thing about it. You can practice everything, just match it to your current ability level, and the things that you can still do will still work for you. Like, there's a bunch of disabled parkour athletes that are really very skilled and very fit, and their skills match the able-bodied athletes, and that's inspiring. All right. Yeah, there's always this feeling like there's something else I'm supposed to be doing, and like I haven't moved today, I haven't even stretched in the morning, and I'm starting the day sitting down. But then I think, like, I can always stop, or I will go out and move more, although it's very cold out today. It's March, but it's like 28 degrees and windy. I'm already spoiled by just one day that we had that was so warm and nice. And now I'm like, no, I'm not going out. Winter is over. We already had one nice day, and what's this relapse business? I don't want to go out. Even though I was perfectly okay with enduring temperatures that were even lower than this throughout the winter. Wasn't bothered. I would go out and frolic in a 20-degree weather. Now it's like, oh no, it's not supposed to be cold. It's the glitch in the matrix. I'm not going out. I'm boycotting the outdoors. But yeah, this helps me relax. It's like when you're anxious, try something like this. And if your anxiety is masquerading as other diseases that you think you might have suddenly, try this. And if it's all going away in an instant, then it means that you're not sick. It's just anxiety. That's kind of a nice test to have. It's not a heart attack. If it happens suddenly, like if you suddenly feel heart attack symptoms after lying down, it's likely not a heart attack, because heart attack would come more randomly in the middle of whatever you're doing. If it's kind of, you're feeling it because right after you lie down, it means that your mind is now quiet, and when things are quiet around you, the monsters are waking up and masquerade as cardiac arrest or some kind of horrible heart failure, heart attack. And then the same goes for this kind of mindful activity when you're kind of ingrained with this kind of relaxing activity, puts you in the state of flow. Suddenly your fake heart attack is gone. Your anxiety lets go. And it's all about this process here. And then when you stop, you might feel worse again. That means that actually gives you a good kind of benchmark to work with. That tells you that this is actually not a real illness, that it's just anxiety, and knowing that helps you calm down. So it's kind of one way to defeat anxiety is finding ways to make sure that this really is nothing but anxiety, and that it's kind of like stripping the bully down. Like it's kind of like pulling the bully's pants down and then finding out he has like a SpongeBob underwear, like kind of making the bully less threatening. It's like, oh, you're just an anxiety. I don't have time for you. Go away. More blobbiness. Approaching the corner here, I'm kind of trying to define what else can be drawn here aside from blobs. I think it's going to be blobs. Feel more casual and nonchalant about this part. It's kind of a challenge to find importance. It's a challenge to find importance in every mark you leave. To pay attention to every single element of your life, of what surrounds you. And it's both goes for creating things, but also for observing your reality, paying attention to every single detail and appreciating even the most mundane, seemingly mundane elements of it. Ugh. It feels like even with the glasses, my eyes are becoming a little tired and blurry. Yesterday I watched this movie about Vincent van Gogh. It's called Loving Vincent. Movie created entirely out of paintings. Every frame was a Van Gogh style painting done by more than 100 animation artists. They had kind of sizable canvases to paint on, but I think they also painted on surfaces that were not canvases, probably some kind of cheap surfaces, and I think some of it was painted on some kind of celluloid material, because you could see that the backgrounds in certain shots were permanently fixed as just a background, as a painting, while the figures in front of this background were moving. So that actually does make sense, because it does save a lot of time. Animation is tedious enough without these shortcuts, but it was really almost made me question, like, why would you even go through trouble of so much work? I mean, the final result is breathtaking. To create a movie about Vincent van Gogh, where every single frame is painted in the style of his paintings. What a tribute. But few things that I think about this movie that didn't work quite well was the story itself. I don't know, it was set right after Van Gogh's death, and there was some question whether he was killed by someone or committed suicide, and one of his friends conducted a little investigation and asked around about what really happened, and then the conclusion was that he actually did hurt himself and didn't want anyone to be blamed for it. And like I was kind of lost for finding an actual compelling story of Vincent. It was a little bit more about his final days, but not much insight into his, like, I mean, the characters would talk about what he was like, but it was ironically a movie about Vincent van Gogh without Vincent van Gogh in it. That kind of bothered me. And also the Vincent van Gogh in this animation didn't quite vibe as Vincent. I didn't really feel like I'm looking at Vincent van Gogh. The actor had very little to do with Vincent van Gogh. His character was a little not as intense as Van Gogh character would have to be. I think it was a little subdued in terms of acting, because the acting was basically in all the retrospective stories. There was like little black and white footage of Vincent and his final days, but it was disappointingly inaccurate, the depiction of the character of the Van Gogh. The actor wasn't even, the likeness wasn't even that striking. Like the actor was kind of a hunky dude, and like Van Gogh was way skinnier, way more intense. Like his cheekbones were more pronounced, and kind of he looked troubled more and malnourished, skinny. And the actor was kind of a little too Hollywood, kind of Hollywood hunk kind of actor. And there was very little of Van Gogh, aside from the fact that every frame in the movie was basically a Van Gogh painting. And then the conclusion of the movie, I already know how it ends, and I already know that he likely killed himself or shot himself without any evidence that he indeed wanted to kill himself. It may have been one of those self-harming acts, like the ear, slicing off his ear, where he just had the urge to hurt himself. But whether he wanted to end things, that's a little bit of a debate. Because if he wanted to end it, he would probably aim for more vital organs than his stomach, which led him to survive 2 more days in a barn on a bed. There was really nobody to help him out. So one more instance where you look at how the current modern times are way better for surviving than even a few decades ago, where Van Gogh didn't have enough professional, adequate psychological help, and also didn't get enough surgical help when he was hurt by the bullet. It could have been all reversed. The story of Van Gogh wouldn't be fulfilled if Van Gogh lived to old age in good health. Maybe the angst was what driving his art, even though he created paintings in order to calm down, just as I do with these drawings here. When he painted, he was truly happy and calm, as he was stating in his letters multiple times. There's this misconception of a struggling artist, a disturbed artist who is in the state of disruption and pain, and that's when he or she paints or makes art. But that's not the truth, because when the artist is in distress, they just curl up in bed and cry. Very rarely an artist will pick up their materials and work in a state of distress, and most often the prerequisite for creating something is to feel at peace and to feel the urge, the excitement to create something. When you feel miserable, nothing else matters, and you don't really feel like creating anything. So I think of it as if every single painting I see of Vincent van Gogh is done at the time when he was at peace, when he was happy. And I think this is the perfect place to end this video without ending the unfolding process itself, because this drawing is a continuation. This is just one page. Train. This is the noisiest place on earth. I don't like those trains. F*** off. Train. Go f*** yourself. So this session, I wanted to do the... Fuck! Train. Trains! Noise.